friends, Ryan Sharpens here. Welcome to the madVR Experience Center Home Theater Tour. A lot of things that go into a lot of these journeys. I had a home theater before this, and I thought it was not the best, but I thought it was what suited me. And then I made a mistake, as a lot of us encounter on these journeys. And by mistake, I mean my ignorance became, I lost my ignorance on this journey. And I went to, there was a vendor event at a home theater custom integrator, Atlanta Home Theater, run by Alex Evans, fantastic guy. And this event wasn't your typical like commercial or AV event that vendors usually attend. It was just kind of a mingle kind of thing. So we were going to have fun. And I went, and I had been talked to by a couple of my friends. Cameron Troy and Todd Sutherland had been talking to me about a particular brand that I needed to look into, that it was really good. It brought a lot of what my Martin Logans did, but was able to do a lot of other things. I really don't like compression drivers. I don't like coaxials. It's just not my thing. I've never found something that I really liked. So I go to Atlanta Home Theater, and they've asked me a few times to go listen to these speakers in this room. And there were 2 speakers and a sub in this room, off to the side. Like, it's not my thing. I don't think I'm gonna like it. And finally, enough prodding, how we are always eventually, you can only take so much, and then you eventually succumb. So I just said, okay, fine. I'll go do what you want me to do. I'm not gonna like it, and then I'm gonna leave. I sat down, they turned on, and I just went, crap. I knew as soon as they turned on that this was a mistake. I should have stuck to my guns and not sat down, but this was for a different reason. I sat down, they turned on, and within half a second, my brain was already going through, how can I make these work? I need to tear my room apart. I need to move walls. I need to change the entire space, which I had just finished a couple of years before. We had a bar in the back. We had a totally different feel to what it is now. And those speakers, it was 2 Ascendo Black Swans and then a 64, previously the 50. So a sub that looked very much like this. And that was the best 2-channel experience I'd ever had. And it was in a totally untreated room. It was in what Alex, I think it was in his office. And it was just a changing experience. I don't know how else to explain it. It tore the ignorance away from me. And I heard a quote from one of my friends, I think it was Todd that said it, that ignorance is cheap. And my ignorance was keeping me from spending more money, and then that ignorance was gone because I sat there and that was the new status quo. And how I work is that is now going to be everything that I compare back to, and I didn't want to have to compare back to. I wanted to be able to sit down and have the best, and be able to sit down and be transcended into what we're all chasing, that AV nirvana, be fully immersed in the content and not sit there and wonder, how could this be better? So getting that stuff, redoing the room has taken me to a point of, there's no question about what I'm listening to, what I'm doing, what I'm watching. This is as good as it gets. How I feel when I sit down in this space is very similar to what was said in the previous question. There's no question of what's going to be better, what could improve, what could change. Am I missing out on something? I sit down and I allow myself to be fully immersed. I go into the content, which I think is what everybody's chasing. You're chasing that immersion. And the theater that we've been able to build, and I say we because these theaters, in a lot of cases, are not built by just one person. They have handprints and fingerprints and the blood and sweat of so many people that have contributed to these spaces. So that we've built, this theater we've built has allowed for that to happen. And it allows for you to be fully immersed. The theater falls away. The screen falls away. You don't feel like you're watching something. you feel like you're experiencing something. And I get that 2-channel, movies, surround music, concerts, whatever it is, it's, for lack of a better expression, it's an experience. The movies, demos, music that really encapsulate what this space is able to do, the one that really does it is Imagine Dragons' Smoke and Mirrors. Everybody that sees that, the initial reaction is, it's Imagine Dragons, like, they're okay, you know, it's pop, it is what it is. But you sit somebody down, and every time I sit down, it doesn't matter how many times I've seen it, it brings everything together. It feels like you were front row in that concert. And I've seen that demo 100 times, 200 times in this space, and every time my hair stands up. Every time I have an emotional reaction to what I'm experiencing, and it brings everything together, the video, the audio, the emotion that we're all trying to get to connect to what's on screen. And it encapsulates all of that into one, I think it's 11 minutes, 11-minute demo. Aside from that, really good one that gets a lot of positive reviews. Fury is fantastic. I think it's what Tank Destroyed is what that scene's called.
One more, again!
And then Godzilla x Kong Fight in Tokyo, round 2, is also really good, especially for HDR. We do a lot of 300 nit. Well, I don't say we do a lot of. The projector in this room is calibrated for 300 nits. So the Godzilla Atomic Breath does an amazing job at showcasing HDR. Another really good one is an old one, but a good, not too old, but old in a sense. Interstellar, Into the Wormhole, is fantastic because this room it provides the experience that you're in the ship. Like you are riding along with the astronauts. And it doesn't feel out of control, but you're still getting all of the low infrasonic bass.
Here we go. Beyond our 3 dimensions. All you can do is record and observe.
And then another really good one that people may be tired of. No, it's not Ready Player One, but it's A Star Is Born. So I like Alibi because most people don't show that particular scene. And then the other one is Shallow. So those are the scenes that I can't get enough of in this space. And every time I watch them, I'm catapulted right back to the first time I watched them in that space, hair standing up on my arms and having that emotional connection to what's on screen. The most challenging part in this space is there's a lot of things that we've done in this space that nobody's done before. It's a small room. I mean, the dimensions of the room are 28 feet long, 16 feet wide, and 8 feet tall. So getting all of this stuff into this space was not the easiest thing in the world. It's 3 black swans, it's 8 21-inch kick subs, 2 33-inch infrasonics, a 64-inch infrasonic, and then 14 12-inch pro berylliums that are everywhere else. And then it's officina, and it's a very small space to make all of this happen. But the biggest thing that we had to overcome is this guy did not fit down the stairs. And my wife was skeptical when I got it. I said, I'm getting this sub. And she's like, is that going to fit down the stairs? Specifically the cabinet. The driver fit okay. But specifically the cabinet. And I said, yes, I measured, it's gonna fit. It will absolutely fit. And I even showed her, hey, look, from the tread to the ceiling, it's gonna fit. And some of you may already be aware of where this is going wrong. Movers came over because I was not gonna move the cabinet downstairs. It wasn't this cabinet. I wasn't gonna move the cabinet downstairs. The cabinet by itself weighed about 600 pounds at the time, made of MDF. And we go to move it, and it's on the stairs, and we're sliding it down the stairs, and it doesn't fit. And I'm thinking, how does it not fit? I just measured this. Did I mismeasure the cabinet? What happened? It will not fit. So we're moving, we're trying to figure out what's going on. Doesn't fit. And it dawned on me. Like, we always have those, what are they, like an epitome moment. That's not the correct expression, but it gets the point across, where I realized I measured incorrectly. I realized instead of measuring from the tread straight up, I should have gone at an angle, because the sub was coming down at an angle, and this corner was actually going to be further out, further up the stair. So it was going to be higher, but further out. And that was impacting and hitting the joist. So I had a structural engineer came out, and he measured the same way. And he goes, it'll fit. I don't know what you're talking about. And I said, you're wrong. It will not fit. And I showed him. He goes, oh. So I felt validated that I had somebody else come out, measure the incorrect way again, and like, I'm not as big of an idiot as I thought. So we knew it wouldn't fit. We looked at the joist. This is the joist coming down the stairs. Above that staircase is the staircase going upstairs. And we looked at some stuff. We realized, or he told me, that that joist was actually supporting the staircase above it, and where it was positioned, though it could be moved, it would be a huge fiasco in order to support it, take the joist out, worry about building something that would allow the upstairs staircase to be utilized without it collapsing or causing all kinds of problems. And I just said, my wife would shoot me if I did that. I would be single. I would be dead and single at that point. So I looked at other options of, can we drop this thing through the floor? Like, can I cut a box out on the hardwood floor? Can we drop it through the floor? Can we go through the prep kitchen? Can we somehow go through a window through there's a window with a, words escape me. I'm terrible with the words in a lot of cases, but for basements, whatever that's called. You guys will, Jordan will show a picture because I can't find the word for it. But trying to figure that out, nothing would work. So M-Wave is in 2 months. For anybody that doesn't know, I run an event in Kansas City called M-Wave, Midwest AV Experience, and it's all about the objectivity. And this room was part of that showcase. Like, people were coming over, and this room was part of that showcase. So it had to be done. And it was in 2 months, and this sub won't fit down the stairs. So I'm panicking. And I realized that, hey, instead of trying to make it fit, what if we just rebuild it and not take this one apart and put it back together, but build an entirely new cabinet? So I start talking to people, and luck would have it that one of the people here in Kansas City is a great tradesman and builds subwoofer cabinets on the side. Nothing ever this large, but he graciously accepted with some, talking into and some very worthy compensation to help us. And I don't know that he knew what he was getting himself into, because when I talked to Jeffrey, the owner of Ascendo, that it wouldn't fit, we were going to rebuild it. He goes, well, if you're going to rebuild it, make it bigger, because the original cabinet was actually too small. So we decided that we were going to double its internal volume. So instead of it being 24 inches deep, it became 48 inches deep, and it was 20 sheets of Baltic birch. So this cabinet took about 80 hours to build, 20 sheets of 3/4 inch Baltic birch. All of the outsides are laminated, so they're double stacked. And with the driver in it, it weighs over 2,000 pounds. So it was built in this room. It will not leave this room. Even if we move, we'll have to tear it apart or the next owner will get it. The driver can come out, but the cabinet, it's not leaving. It's here forever, or it's leaving in pieces. So that was the largest hurdle that had to be overcome. And it was quite a large hurdle. And I got quite lucky because the projector, you can see it, I don't know if you can see it on the camera, it sits above the subwoofer. It actually sits on the subwoofer. And there's some things looking back that I didn't account for, and the projector is one of them. And what I didn't account for is making sure that it would fit between the subwoofer and the ceiling. It fit by 1/4 of an inch. So I got very lucky. You're like sliding in, you're like, oh my God, it's not gonna fit, it's not gonna fit. Oh, it fits, and you have like this much space to make it work. And then the other one I didn't account for was behind the screen, there's a subwall, and we'll show a picture, but it's 221s, a 33, 221s, a 33, and 221s. And it doesn't sound like it would be too horribly wide. At least that's when I was visualizing it. And then we got all the subs in here, and it fit by 1/2 inch, going wall to wall. Like there's no room. So I have a 1/4 inch on one side and a 1/4 inch on the other side. I did not account for that. And if I would have just been out of luck. I don't know what we would have done, but I didn't account for it. I got very lucky, and I look at all of this stuff as just being part of the journey. Like I get frustrated in the moment, but looking back, it adds to the story. It's another chapter in what this room has become, and it's something that I'll always remember, because a big part of these rooms that people don't think about is the build process. I mean, people think about it, but that is the part that we all remember. You don't necessarily remember when you sat down and enjoyed content. Though it is fun and enjoyable, the things we remember and talk about are the building process, the process of creating these spaces, the people we've worked with, the relationships we formed during those spaces. That journey is, in my opinion, more important than the space's completion in a lot of ways. I gained some great friendships out of it. I met some really amazing people. And to be honest, looking back, I wouldn't change a thing. I'd do the same thing all over again. I'd run into the same problems, and you know, it's the struggles that form us. So I'd do it all once more. Hosting movie nights here is all about immersion. I want people to just enjoy the content. I don't provide an expectation. I don't set a mood. It's just, let's eat something and let's enjoy some content. That's all it is. It's definitely don't try to take it any further than that. It's, let's just enjoy some media, if you will. Because it's, I don't know how to put this. I don't overhype anything. I don't tell anybody, though I feel this is one of the best spaces in the world. I don't try and convey that to anybody. I just want people to enjoy themselves, enjoy the time they have, and enjoy the time they have spending time with others, because we build these home theaters, though I'm primarily the one that enjoys this space. Home theater is a space, it's a hobby that is meant to be enjoyed with other people. We enjoy talking about it, us as enthusiasts. And if you're not an enthusiast, I'm sure you do too when you're enjoying content in the living room or even your own dedicated theater. We all enjoy it more when we're not by ourselves, because we as people, we're social beings, right? We want to be surrounded. We want to have relationships. And I was told a long time ago in a business course that all business is an excuse to form relationships. And honestly, all home theater is an excuse to enjoy content with other people, in my opinion. We do enjoy it by ourselves, but it's way more enjoyable when you're enjoying something, you can laugh with somebody else, you can look at them after the piece of content's done and be like, man, that was awesome, or holy crap, that sucked. And it's more fun that way. So I just want people to come over and enjoy themselves. That's all it is. Whatever it is, if we're watching a game, if we're watching the newest movie, we just want a great example of this. We watched the newest Superman. Came out this year. And I had mixed reviews. And I had Jonathan Von England and Bob Dieterle. They both came over. And for anybody that doesn't know, both of those guys have been on a podcast that I run. And they've been a huge help. They're great players in the home theater space. But they came over and we watched Superman. And watching that movie alone, I probably would have turned it off. But watching it with them, I still remember Jonathan sitting next to me and him holding his phone, and all it's saying was Mark. And I had no idea what that meant. And then he put it down. No idea what it meant. And then after the movie, he goes, I was actually showing you, so if we turned it off, we could mark where we stopped it. And it was just these little jokes, and we all laughed at how bad the movie was. It's our opinion, but we all laughed at how bad the movie was. And it was more fun to be in that moment with other people. So no expectations. Nobody knew what that movie was going to be like. We just wanted to enjoy it, and we did, just not in the way we thought we would. The best advice to give to somebody that's building their own home theater is enjoy the journey. People forget, we get this all the time on the podcast that we run, that we've been doing this a long time, right? People make the assumption that, people just build these spaces out of nowhere. And yes, some people do, but these are long journeys. And the journey, like with anything, is filled with fraught, and it's filled with learning, right? We run into perils, we run into things that don't go well, not fitting down the stairs and the other things that we've run into. But we also, as long as we can learn from those things, continually can make things better. So this space is just a evolution of what was here before. Enjoying the journey is the biggest thing, because the journey is what people are going to remember. And remembering that everybody is on their own journey, like we are with our own lives. Everybody is taking a different pathway. Don't think that just because somebody else does something, that is the right thing for you. Everything in here, in this space, and I say this all the time on the podcast, is everything in here is a tool to overcome some type of limitation that exists in this room, to make something better. So if you look at everything that you're doing, the people as resources that you can get information from, the equipment, the room, it's all tools that comes together to build something. And using those tools to build whatever it is as well as it can be is the journey that we are all on when we're making these spaces. So my advice is a couple things. Enjoy the journey. The other thing is enjoy the relationships that are formed along the way, because you are always going to remember the stories of that traversal of travel, of the journey itself, way more than you're going to of the content that you take in a given day. Like, I couldn't even tell you what content I watched last week, but I can regurgitate and laugh and have a good time about the journey that I was on making this room. So enjoy that, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. You're gonna make mistakes. I made mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. It's all just important that we learn from those mistakes and trying to not reinvent the wheel and just get to the end and make it as good as we can, and realize that nothing is perfect. There's tons of stuff in this room that, looking back, I would be like, I'd probably do that differently. But part of me will say, that's part of this room's DNA, and I don't know that I would change it because it's part of this room's story. And as long as you understand that everything has a story, and that the imperfections enhance that story, because we as people are imperfect beings, these rooms are imperfect rooms, it becomes just another page in the storybook, right? And that story is never fully finished. Things are constantly changing, things are constantly evolving. Don't build something and think this is the end. Even people ask me all the time about this room, like, what else are you going to do? And right now, I don't know. I don't know what I would do, but I know that this is not the end of this room's story. It'll evolve into something else. And people should recognize that this is what happens for every room that's out there. There's a constant evolution. There's a constant change. If there's a failure of something, that can be fixed or evolved. And potentially, if you didn't encounter that failure, you wouldn't have had the learning moment to realize what needs to change to make something better. So relish in the failures. I know that's a really funny thing to say, but relish in the imperfection and the failures, and realize that those are the things that are going to allow you to learn and get to something that's even better than what you had before. So this space, for me, is a culmination of what I've learned, what I've experienced over my journey. So for anybody that doesn't know, I'm an AV integrator, I'm a custom integrator. I work for madVR, I'm a contractor for them. I do all their training and support. in sales engineering. I do a podcast. So I fully immerse myself when I get into something. And this theater, this space, simply represents what I've learned over my journey. And it's a story that has evolved while I've evolved along my pathway of this career. So this space just is a culmination of what I've experienced, what I've learned up until this point. And it's pretty representative of me. Like, I see myself in this room, the colors, the theme, the aesthetics, the technology. This is a representation of me in home theater form. I, throughout a big part of my life, have always been go big or go home. If I'm going to do something, I'm not going to do something half-assed. I'm just going to, for the younger generation, say YOLO and send it, right? That's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to do something, well, there's this one, but then there's this one that's better. Because what ends up happening, like my story about seeing the Black Swans and at the time the 50 at Atlanta Home Theater, once that is my status quo, that is the comparative for everything else. And everything that I experience, we're going to go back to that. And it's going to drive me insane because it never leaves, ever. My wife looks at me all the time like, what is wrong with you? I don't know. I can't get it out of my head. This is where we go back to. And so I recognized that when I built the last theater, and building this one, I just wanted to pull out all the stops. I wanted to show what could be done if you decided to do something with as little compromise as possible. Like, there's one row in this room. Seating capacity is a compromise, but I did that because I've got low ceilings, right? You can't get the dispersion from the overhead speakers to encompass more than one row. In a lot of ways, it's selfish, but in order to get the best experience from out of a given seat without compromising, that's what I did. I tell people all the time, do not design for the 1%. Design and utilize for the 99%. Design for the 99% use case. Don't sit there and say, well, what if I have friends over? Jordan, you and I talked about this before, that most of the time when friends come over, they have no idea. They didn't even know you had a theater. So they don't care. So why design a space around people that do not care? Design for your use case. Design for the 99%. So this room is the 99% use case, which is me, right? That's selfish, but it's this chair. Now, it's a better experience than the previous theater because of the speaker choices and stuff all the way across the couch. Like, this room is level 4 for video and audio from about here to here. So unfortunately, if you're all the way in the corners, you're not getting level 4 because the side surrounds are too close to you. But this room just is representative of my journey up until this point, and I tried to do it into the future because one of my biggest mottos is, don't make past you hate future you. And that means always design in a way that things are easily changeable, right? That you can do things without getting mad. And actually, I said that backwards. Don't make future you hate past you. Did I say that right? Maybe. Okay. You guys get the idea. But design in a way where it's easily changeable so that you're not sitting there going, why did I do this? It's always, well, this is easy. I'm glad I did it this way. And so a big reason for a lot of the design decisions in this room are to make things easy because I knew I was going to change things. The previous theater, I put in a ton of speaker drops. And I thought, man, I'm going to change these speaker drops. I'm going to use these in a few years if things change. I used them all in 3 months. So recognizing that's I am that person, I put things in place that if things were going to change, they were super easy to change. So in a lot of ways, this room, as I said at the beginning, is me in a home theater. It's everything that I've come to learn, everything that represents me, my personality, my journey. This is me. Watching movies in commercial now, it sucks. Every time I go, and I go maybe once a year, maybe once every 2 years, because Jonathan will say something like, oh, let's go see this movie. Like the last one we saw was F1, and I think it was an X screen. And I go because it's something different. And then I always regret it. Always regret it because I'm not in charge of my own experience. I'm looking and constantly finding all of the faults that are going on. Oh, the screen is wavy over here. Oh, the exit signs are illuminating the screen. The projector's out of focus. The sound is only coming more from the left side, and it drives me nuts. Mainly because I am not the one causing the problems. I am reliant on somebody else. And my personality is that I don't want to be reliant on somebody else. I want to do it as well as I can. And if I get mad at somebody, it better be mad at me because of a failure that I made. So I have not been to a good commercial experience really since I endeavored on building an actual dedicated home theater. So better part of a decade, I would say, that it's been since I've enjoyed a commercial space. But I mean, these home spaces, they're way more capable than commercial. So I really, even a good, well-implemented commercial theater, a really good residential is gonna blow it away because of it's a smaller space. There's less compromise. Commercial has some benefits of being big in some ways for how sound travels and big screens and stuff, but they've got a lot of compromises to overcome. And residential, if properly implemented, in my opinion, there's just no comparison. So yeah, it sucked. If I could go back in time, what would I tell myself? Don't go to Atlanta Home Theater. Don't go. It's going to be expensive. And I laugh about it now because I enjoy this space and it's taught me a lot. I've overcome a lot of stuff. But man, looking back, I could be doing something else. And I don't regret it, but that was the tipping point. I didn't know I was going to do anything because I wasn't actively doing something until I sat down and went, oh no. Oh. And then it was cascading from there. It was the last pebble before the rock slide. And that room, that half second sitting down with those black swans and that 50, that was the pebble that started the rock slide. And the rock slide has just been going. It still hasn't stopped. I mean, we're still going. I don't know where it'll end. We're still going. So that would be that. The other part would be enjoy the journey. Enjoy the people. And I'm glad that I've been able to do that. I think it wouldn't be something that I would do different. It would just be a reminder because the journey, the relationships that I've formed, the friends that I've gained, that's the really important part and the thing that I think about and the people that helped me build this room. I mean, the people that helped me build this room, Cameron Troy, Todd Sutherland, Jeffrey Heinzel, Bob Dieterle, who I know I'm going to forget people, Tony Kincaid, my wife, all of the other vendors that helped with this space, that helped me design and do things to bring the vision to life. Maurizio and Peter from Officina, the guys from Christie, the guys from Seymour, the guys from Stewart, all those guys have been fantastic in helping with this journey. And a couple more, Matt Trinkline from Storm, Adam Peltz from, what is his company called? I can never remember what Adam's company's called, but they did help me with calibration. We were locked in this room for a week doing the calibrations. This room has their fingerprints all over it. And this isn't just my room, it's all of their rooms. And these rooms take a village to build. Like a room like this does not happen with one person. I mean, sure, over several years, we built this room because the Officina panels came late. We got this room from a OSB Dynamat covered, not Dynamat, but black painted walls to where it sits now, minus some lighting and stuff, in a week with those guys on site. I mean, that was 18-hour days for roughly 7 days straight, nonstop. And without those guys, this room wouldn't have happened before, and it would not have happened. So I am hugely thankful for all of them, and this room is as much theirs as it is mine. And I'm just glad that we were able to build something that encapsulates all of their journeys and brings it all in here and showcases with their willingness what is possible in home theater. I mean, I really think that this room is representative of what can be done if virtually all the stops are pulled out, minus the size of the room, because that was my limitation. If I could change anything in this room, it would be making the room bigger, but it won't fit in this house. But outside of that limitation, I mean, this room, to me, is representative of what's possible.
Welcome back to Epic Home Theater Tours. I'm your host, Hatoraid Cowboy, and I'm in Kansas City filming probably the biggest home theater that I might ever film. This is the madVR Experience Center, and I'm here with my good friend, Ryan.
How are you doing?
Good to see you again, Ryan.
It's been good. I'm glad this journey is done. Well, I say done. No journey is really done. Right. It's done for now. My wife will say, I'll walk up to her and go, yeah, I'm done. She just looks at me. She knows. The journey's never over. It's over for now. I haven't figured out the direction I'm going now or what can fit, but we're here and I'm glad that we can enjoy it now.
Yeah, definitely. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me out here, not only to check out this home theater, but also giving me a chance to film it, document it, and share it with everybody on YouTube. I know people already in the comments have posted a short and they're like, man, I've been waiting for this. We finally get to see Ryan's theater. So it's finally here, guys. So to start off, why don't we talk a little bit about you and your home theater journey? Okay. Obviously, this is like insane, but a lot of people, they always think the same thing. Oh, somebody's rich, or you don't start here. You don't start anywhere near here. So why don't you tell me a little bit about your home theater journey? How did you get into home theater?
So how this all started is way back. I don't even remember when. My dad, the precipice, the tipping point where I went down this technical path was my dad was always into technology, right? He became a carpenter. He was a wood carpenter by trade, and I worked with him, but he went to school to be a programmer when they were using punch cards. And so he always had a passion for technology. He always had a passion for photography. He always had a passion for anything that did cool things. Some of them weren't really meaningful in any way, but if it was cool and it was exciting, that was the direction he went. So I'll always remember, you remember Sharper Image?
Yes.
I think Sharper Image may still be around, but when you get the catalog and Sharper Image with all this cool stuff and the stereos and the glass, you're like, oh, it looks so cool. It probably was terrible, but it looked really cool. So he bought this Sharper Image digital thermometer. It has nothing to do with home theater, but he bought a digital thermometer and he put it on the side of a cabinet, and then it had a remote station that it would tell you what the weather was outside. And that got me thinking of, well, how does it work? The technology and everything. So that sent me down this pathway of technology. Then he got, I was a little bit older, and he got a Bose surround system in the basement. Bose didn't always suck. I mean, Bose at one point was great.
A lot of people started with Bose.
Yeah, they did. And when you don't know any better, and I tell this to people all the time, ignorance is bliss, and ignorance can be cheap. When you stop being ignorant and you realize, oh, there's great stuff out there, and then that becomes the new status quo, you realize that, oh, I may be spending more money. And so Bose, for me at the time, was fantastic, and it had a great experience. So that furthered that. And I will always remember this dumb Sony huge remote. It was about this big, and it was a touchscreen. It was a pain in the butt to program. And of course, you and I were the generations where we lived before the internet and after the internet. So all the technology, we became the barons of the technology. Our parents always came to us like, how does this work? Why don't you figure it out? Well, it's your job now, so you're going to do it. And we became this gatekeeper of technology. So I always remember that. And then from there, it was just little things, odds and ends. I don't think I had a real coming back to it until in my adult life, until I bought a pair of Martin Logan Motion 10s. I gave them away this year. I had them up until this year. They were speakers. They were about that tall. They used the Martin Logan AMT. They sounded good for what they were. They weren't expensive, but went from there. And then I was gifted a James loudspeaker subwoofer, and things really started to get out of control at my previous house before this one. So I worked at Best Buy for a long time.
Same here.
And I feel like a lot of people
Not
in
a
the
long
industry
time, but about 3 months.
yeah.
But I worked.
So that is not a long time, Jordan, at all.
I worked at Best Buy
At all.
also.
So did I. 3 months. No. Okay. So worked at Best Buy for a long time, and I always loved the Martin Logan electrostatics. And I thought, if I get speakers, that's where I want to go. So I got the Motion 10s. They weren't electrostatics, but they were Martin Logans. They had the logo, so that was exciting. And for anybody that doesn't know, Martin Logan is headquartered 30 minutes away from where we are right now in Lawrence.
Okay.
So it was a hometown thing. You know, you're representing the hometown brand. So I always wanted a Martin Logan pair of electrostatics. And our previous house, this was, how long ago was this? This would have been almost 10 years ago. I got a pair of Martin Logan ESLs, the baby electrostatics, I'll call them. And I thought they were awesome. And I paired those with a XT50, which was their traditional center channel AMT, and then 2 woofers on the sides. And then I still had that James subwoofer. It was a 10-inch, and I thought it was awesome. You're like, it's making everything shake. Because you know that's the direction we always go. We think if it shakes, it's doing what it needs to do.
Yep.
And then I paired that with a Klipsch, what was it? I think a 120 or something. They're 12-inch ported. Looks cool. It's got the orange cone. You think this is amazing. You pick it up. It weighs like 4 pounds. And you realize later that a light subwoofer is probably not the greatest thing. But this isn't me dogging on Klipsch, right? A lot of people start with Klipsch. A lot of people still love Klipsch. I don't think that Klipsch subwoofer was very good. So got that. I had 2 mismatched subwoofers, but I didn't care because it made things shake even more.
It's all that matters.
It's all that matters. And then I added 2 Martin Logan FX2s because the surround channels were very close to me, like very close. So we can put a picture up. So that picture I don't think will show those particular speakers. I may be able to find one, but you can see the living room. This is all in a living room. And the living room opened into a kitchen, and there was like an overhang bar thing that sat here. So you sat down kind of below this bar. And I built these really thin tables so we could put the FX2s sitting there. Yeah. So they were really close.
No separation at all.
No. I mean, well, they were really close to me. So
Gotcha.
They weren't close to each other. They were really close to me. So the FX2s were perfect for that particular use case. And then I added some sort of in-ceiling speaker. I don't even remember what it was. I think they were BIC or something. I wasn't trying to spend a whole lot of money, and everybody said, oh, well, your Atmos speakers, you don't have to spend a ton of, like, if you're going to not spend money, that's where you don't want to spend it. So it ended up being a 512. There were 2 subs and then the tops, and it was great. I thought it was fantastic. And then something snapped. I don't know what happened. I don't know what triggered it. I woke up one day and just went, you know what? It's time to send it. It's time to go. And those ESLs went from fronts to rears. And the fronts, they got replaced by Martin Logan 15As. So they like quadrupled, 5 times, 10 times as large. I still remember sending the picture to my wife, and I hadn't unboxed them. And the boxes they come in, they're the size of refrigerators. They are huge. Each speaker comes on its own pallet. The box is like, can't even get it on camera. It's like this wide, probably wider than that. It's the whole pallet. Like the whole pallet is the box for one speaker. And I sent her the picture, and it just said red. There was no response. There was no anything. And for anybody that's married, you know, when that happens, it probably wasn't the best decision that you made, especially because those were going in the living room. And they came with 2 REL 212 special editions. So they were dual active 12-inch drivers with a 12-inch passive radiator. And those were big. I mean, they stood about that tall, about that wide. And those were what I thought were great subs. I'm not dogging on REL. I didn't know any better. I can't say I didn't know any better. They were great subs. Great subs. Okay, so then I'm enjoying myself. And for whatever reason, I get on AVS Forum. And from there, I meet Jonathan. So Jonathan Arkea, Jonathan Von England, I run a podcast with him. He lives 45 minutes from me. I like to say for everybody that meets Jonathan or everybody that's in home theaters, how many degrees away from Jonathan are you? Like how many connections do we have to make before we get back to Jonathan?
6 degrees of Jonathan.
Yes, yeah. So 5 degrees of Jonathan, 10 degrees of Jonathan. That's where we are. Well, I met Jonathan in person and we got to talking about subwoofers because it was mainly subs. I don't know how we got on that topic, but I demoed his theater and I distinctly remember him turning something on and me going,
oh no,
mine don't do that. And I knew right then, like you'll find out through this entire tour of this home theater, that I make decisions very quickly because I know when that becomes the new status quo, there is no changing that. Once you see, once you hear, there is no unseeing or unhearing. That is it. And I don't like being in the place of knowing that things could be better. That is not a safe place for me at all. So I sit down and go, mine don't do that. And he starts telling me about JTR and the 4000 ULFs. And of course, me being me, I don't go, I could use one. No, I bought two. So
instantly.
I came home, bought two, contacted Jeff, had two 4000 ULFs coming. Those are not small subs, ladies and gentlemen. They're like 4 feet tall, 2 feet wide, 4 feet deep, way over 300 pounds, dual 18s. They're huge. And my wife thought the 212s were big. These are like 4 times the size of those 212s.
It's like a refrigerator.
I again didn't tell her how big these were. Again, this is a pattern that
You're trying to
exists
get
in my
left on
life.
red.
I guess. I don't know why my wife is still with me. She's very tolerant, or there's something else about me that she likes. So I bought those, and well, I have a picture of that. It's a hilarious picture because this is in my living room. And then in the middle, there's a 34C, which is Martin Logan's electrostatic center channel. And it's enormous, right? The center channel's like this wide. It's that tall. It sits on the floor. And it's pretty to people like us. But my wife looks at it and goes, that's heinous. Like, that is awful. And it's sitting in front of our entertainment center because it's meant to go on the floor. So I have a TV stand. And then there's this enormous subwoofer or center channel that's sitting in front of it. That's the size of the TV stand.
Funny.
And you have all of this stuff, and there's a 65-inch ST50 Panasonic plasma that's still actually upstairs on the wall. It looks like a 21-inch monitor in comparison to all of this stuff that's sitting around it. The 4000 ULFs make it look insignificantly small. I have a thing for big subwoofers, evidently. And that was the jumping off the cliff, right? The pebble was the Martin Logans, the Motion 10s. It took a while to get things going. And then it just started cascading. And once it started, the pebbles turn into rocks, the rocks turn into boulders, and the boulder turned into a mountain. And now I'm just a mountain falling down. I'm leaving Earth's atmosphere at this point for the place that I've been and gone. So then that made it here, right? So we bought a new house. I thought, man, I want to do a new dedicated home theater. Because that was in my living room. So I wanted a dedicated home theater. Youthman did a tour on that theater. So can you link that?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
So
I'll
we'll
put
link
that in
that.
the
So you guys can see that, and you can see a picture. It was the Martin Logan 15As. It was the 34C. It was EFXs, and the baby ESLs were in the rears. They were still there. So it was an all electrostatic base layer. So it was a 13-channel all electric. It was super cool. Until you walked in, you and I would have just smashed our heads in on the ceiling speakers.
I remember seeing that speaker.
Yeah, they hurt. The corners, because you'll just turn around and go right into a speaker. So eventually I turned them into, when Martin Logan released the C100s, I put those on the ceiling so I could just barely walk underneath them. And if I had hair, it would kind of get tickled by the speaker that was on the ceiling. And then I had the JVC, it was an NX7, then we went to an NZ9. And it was a great space. But that was all done before I became a custom integrator. And I became a custom integrator because really of that journey, that first house, well, not the first house, but that house, when I bought those 15As, I also bought some amplifiers, and I won't name them, but I bought some amplifiers at his recommendation. He's like, these will work great. You know, the electrostatics, they're hard on amplifiers. These won't go into protection. They went into protection. They went into protection. And so I felt like looking back with the RELs and those amplifiers, RELs okay. I just think they're a little bit overpriced. I don't think they're bad subwoofers. So don't take me dogging on them. I think I was getting sold things so he would make more money. And I came out of, for anybody that doesn't know, I got in a bad motorcycle accident in 2017, and we didn't know if I'd ever work again. So I was immediately put on very quickly, within like under a month, I got put on permanent Social Security disability. So they didn't know if I'd ever work again. But they have a program called Return to Work. And I decided, hey, I want to do something. I want to, after several years of being on this, I want to try and return to work. So I did. And I used that to try and start my own business, start this custom integration company. And the reason I did that was because I didn't want people to be taken advantage of by people that they thought were, how can I put this, that were knowledgeable and that they put their trust into, right? When you go to a car dealership, you go to even Best Buy, you go in there and a lot of people look at those and subconsciously they're in a position of knowledge. So you're kind of trusting their opinion on things. And so when we talk to a dealer, custom integrator, or anybody about home theater, or in my case, whole home low voltage stuff, security, speakers, cameras, network, anything that's not high voltage electrical, you're in a position of, they want your opinion because they think that you're a knowledgeable entity on this space. And you're in a position where if you want to take advantage of somebody, you potentially could, because a lot of people don't know. There's an ignorance. That's why they're coming to you. And I didn't like that. I wanted to take an approach of, I want people, if they're going to buy from me, to know what they're getting. They're buying on their own volition, having all of the information so that they can make an informed decision that they're happy with. That's what I would have wanted. So that's what I wanted to become. So I tried to do that and it worked out really well. So then right after I started that, I met Rick at madVR and I wanted to sell madVR and he went, no. You can't sell madVR, because I was just getting started, and looking back, I laugh at it. But then I was like, how could he do this? But looking back, I get it, because I'm just some small guy. I've existed for like a month, right? Why would he let me sell? Right. But instead, he says, do you want a job? So now I'm running my own custom integration company, and now I'm also contracting for madVR, doing all of their technical support and training and sales engineering and a bunch of other stuff now. But that was actually really, really good because everything works synergistically, and it allowed us to, I got to meet some amazing people very quickly because madVR had already positioned itself as a big player in the industry, and I was able to meet people that I really had no business meeting as quickly as I had gotten into the AV space or home theater space. So then we're going to fast forward a few years, and in 23, so I've worked for madVR for about a year and a half at this point.
Okay.
And I'm always on the lookout for, subconsciously, like, is there anything better? I'm not actively thinking about it, because I loved those electrostatics. I still love electrostatics. Their 2-channel experience within that like 5-inch sphere and that's just a limitation of electrostatics because of their dispersion. I'm not dogging on them. It's just how they are. Is there anything better? So I go to Atlanta Home Theater, and up until this point, I have this position of, I don't really like compression drivers. I don't like horns. And I had been talked to by a couple of my friends, Todd Sutherland and Cameron Troy, about Ascendo, right? And I'm thinking, they're compression drivers, they're horns when you get into the Black Swan. I don't like those. All of my experience up to this point tells me, you don't like this subjectively. You like electrostatics. That's where we're going to stay. This is your bread and butter. So there was an event at Atlanta Home Theater. Okay. Alex Evans owns Atlanta Home Theater. Fantastic individual. I love him. Great player in the industry, does a lot of positive things. And he invited all the vendors out for not really a traditional event where we talk to dealers or end users and try to sell things. It was just a fun event where we're all mingling, just relaxing. It was a good time to see all of your friends, right? Because you make a lot of friends in the industry, like anybody does in any industry. And a lot of my friends are international. They're overseas now. Okay. And so being able to see these people was great. So we go out, and this whole time they're trying to get me in this room because Todd wants to bring me on as a dealer, and Cameron's trying to help Todd bring me on as a dealer. And I meet Jeffrey, who's the owner and designer of Ascendo, and they finally get me into this room. And there's 2 Black Swans, and at that point, the 50. Look, exactly like this. They changed how it measures. They've changed the sub, but same size. Now it's called the 64.
Okay.
And they get me in this room. It's not really treated, and it turns on. Half second, my brain goes, oh no. Oh no, I should not be here. So people come to this room and I hear it all the time. It was a mistake coming here. When I went to that room, that was my mistake. And I knew it was a big mistake, like big mistake. So half second, my brain is already gone. This wall needs to move, AT screen, this needs to change. We're going to totally change this, jumping off point. 50's got to come in this way. It's already created a disaster, right? Financial Armageddon is heading my way. My wife does not know this yet. I have experienced this for all of 10 seconds.
More
at this point.
unread texts incoming.
Maybe. More of the, you're in trouble look when you say something and there's no movement from the other side and you feel like your life is in danger. So all you can do is kind of go, haha. And then that gets you in more trouble because she's like, why are you laughing? I feel like I might die in this moment. You might end my life. So I go there, and that was the start of this theater. That was, I need to change things to make this work. And I knew Peter and Maurizio from Officina. I had used, or not used, but I had experienced their stuff, their rooms at Cedia, and I knew the modular part. So a big part of my journey is always make future you, not hate past you. Meaning, if I need to change something, how can I do it as easily as possible without creating an issue? So I don't even know how many channels in that previous theater. I used all of them in 3 months. Because I was trying to say, hey, I'm trying to look for the future. And then they all got used. And then I didn't have a way to add any more. And it taught me a lot because I had more channels on the ceiling than I had on the base layer. And but it taught me that this room's not tall enough, and it's a whole learning experience. People need to be okay with failing, crashing and burning, buying something that doesn't make sense. And you go, oh, well, that was a mistake. Because if you do it right, all of these things are learning experiences. They're all things that we can utilize to make the next pathway, the next journey better. So I learned from that. Maybe it was a mistake at the time, but looking back, now I know. And I can say, I've done that. If somebody asks me, what about heights in this room? And I can say, I've done that. Not worth it. Don't spend your money. So we did all that, trying to come back to where we were. We were on the Officina stuff. And I knew the Officina because how this works is all of these panels, right? They all come off. And you'll see some shots of that later. So they're really high grade hooking, not Velcro. There's a word for it. Velcro is a brand. You get what I mean. And they just pull off and then you can get behind them. But every single one of these panels is a different level of diffusion and a different level of absorption. Okay. So the room itself, it's a room within a room. So things pass through this, they reflect off the back wall, come back into here. So I knew that that's what I wanted to go with. And we'll come back to this when we start talking more about the room, but that was the foundation. That experience and all of those people there were the springboard for sending me down this pathway. And the room got completed a little under a year ago fully to where it is now. We didn't have lighting in it for several months. So it's still a fairly new room. Took us over a year to build, 2 years from concept to get to where we are now. And it's been a journey. And I can thankfully say there is almost nothing in this room. I have no idea how I did this. There is almost nothing in this room that I would do differently.
That's awesome.
Nothing. I look at it and I look around and I think, I don't think I'd change anything. The one thing is the ceiling. It's all OSB. There's 8,000 pounds of plywood in this room. And it's OSB. It drank paint. What I should have done is OSB on the back and then green glue and then MDF to finish better, or drywall to finish better so I could anchor into the OSB. But, looking up, I kind of like the texture.
Yeah.
It gives something to the room. It holds dust and it kind of flaked, but if that's all I look back at and go, that could have been better, I think I did okay. So that was my journey up until this point.
Well, that's an incredible journey. And I know, I'm sure there's other people out there watching this that maybe have a similar journey or looking at that thinking like, okay, that gives me an idea of what I need to do. And I don't have to feel bad starting off, you know, with the minimal setup, budget setup. So great. So on that note, why don't I have you take us around the room,
Sure.
show us everything that's around the room, and then we'll come
Sure.
back and we'll talk more about it.
Yeah, we can absolutely do that. So now let's talk about what's actually in the madVR Experience Center. I was doing the interview here in the chair, so naturally let's talk about what's behind me. This is the Ascendo 64-inch infrasonic subwoofer powered by an AIA2 10K2 amplifier, so 10,000 watts, dual voice coil, and man, is it a monster. And we talked about previously that the original one, the original cabinet, did not fit down the stairs, so that lent itself to the journey of this room. But we did make it in, and thanks to Doug Chiapello for building this cabinet and giving us 80 hours of his time to make this happen. He would go to work and then come over here and work some more to build this thing, and he built the entire thing, made all the cuts with a track saw in the garage. So when you buy a 64-inch subwoofer or even the 100-inch subwoofer from Ascendo, you get the woofer. You don't get the cabinet. And the reason they do that is because the cabinets are so large, like what we found out trying to move this thing down the stairs, they don't fit in a lot of cases, and or they have to be custom made for wherever they're going to go. So this one did come with a cabinet because it was bought secondhand. It was a new driver, but the cabinet was secondhand. And unfortunately, I didn't get to use that cabinet because it didn't fit down the stairs. But Doug Chiapello made all of these cuts in the garage, 20 sheets of Baltic birch, 3/4 inch, and we had 1 sheet of waste. So he spent about 80 hours building this monstrosity. It is 48 inches deep, 68 inches wide, and 72 inches tall, weighs over 2,000 pounds and powered by 10,000 watts. It will blow people's hats off if they're sitting right there, which is kind of unheard of for a home theater subwoofer in a space like this. You see that a lot in car audio, but it is a monster, and it has a tremendous amount of output. And people may look at it and go, well, it's huge, it's going to be really slow. But the actual fact is it's quite the opposite. So the large driver, it's super stiff. It doesn't have to move hardly at all to be able to put out a huge amount of SPL. So the less excursion this thing's going to have, the less distortion it's going to have. So it's one of the best subwoofers, in my opinion, ever made. I think the best subwoofer I'll give to the 33, which we can talk about here in a little bit. But in and of itself, is this thing a necessity for this space? Absolutely not. But man, is it fun to use, and is it fun to look behind you and see this thing moving with 100 millimeters of excursion? It is, for lack of a better term, we said it already, she's a monster. So that's the sub. Let's move up and talk about the projector. The projector is made by Christie. It is a 4K 35 Griffin. It'll do 35,000 lumens, 5,001 native contrast. I'm really excited for when VDR Vader comes out. You can see a little measurement mic sticking here so we can actually see what's going on in the room in real time through RTA and Spectro when we're looking at Smart. But this projector, I said earlier, I didn't really measure, and I got really lucky that she fit. It's sitting on decoupling. They're like rubber half spheres, and it sits on those to decouple from the sub. And Jordan, you saw it yesterday. You don't really notice the projector moving hardly at all. And it is literally sitting on top of this cabinet. Now back to the cabinet for a second. This cabinet, with the subwoofer in it, the driver in it, weighs over 2,000 pounds. That did not stop it from walking. So the driver, when we were using it, when we were doing testing, it was moving. Like it was slowly starting to move forward. So it's actually anchored using concrete anchors, 9 of them, into the floor here. So it can't go anywhere. So she's concrete anchored in the floor. The projector, the 4K 35, sits on top of it on little isolation pucks. And it has its own dedicated 30 amp circuit that it runs on. It's got HVAC, it's in its own hush box, and it back feeds out and dumps out to a different part of the house. So this room stays remarkably cool for how much power comes in here. We're over 100,000 watts of power that comes in here, and we stay remarkably cool. But this projector, in my eyes, the reason I went with it is it, in a lot of capacities, represents, and there's other manufacturers that do this, but it, in my eyes, represents really the end until you get to a certain level. The Eclipse obviously is above this one, but unfortunately the Eclipse would not fit in this room. So this was the consolidation, oh dear, that we had to go with. And I'd probably be a single man if I did the Eclipse. That wouldn't have gone well. So this was the direction we went, and I don't regret it at all. One of the nice things about going to projectors like this is the detachable lenses. Really no other projector. There's a couple manufacturers that may be able to do it, but your typical residential projectors wouldn't be able to work with the throw in this room. We're at I think it's a 1.2 throw, and the screen is 165 inches. So your head in this theater sits about 9.5 feet from 165 inches, and this projector sits roughly 14 feet from the screen. So most residential projectors are not going to be able to make this work, but this lens does make it work. And when you put this thing with the madVR, so for anybody that doesn't know about a madVR video processor, the madVR Extreme, it is able to create an image that is able to keep up with the audio that we're delivering in this room. So we talked about earlier that the audio or the experience, the idea, the goal in this room is to leave nothing on the table. And when you start putting all these things together, like a madVR with a Christie, the better display you give a madVR, the better the overall experience becomes. So you're conjoining a bunch of things that are great on their own and making something better when you put them together. So you're using a bunch of different tools to try and overcome something. And it would have been great using a Christie by itself, but when you take it and use it with something else, it just makes the overall experience better. Like if you use this subwoofer with StormAudio, right? You're able to do a bunch of stuff through PEQ and do things through alignment, through timing that a lot of people unfortunately don't do. They're like, I'm just going to get a flat frequency response, and they don't dive into the time domain. When you're able to leverage tools like that together, it just makes everything really come together and become exponentially better. So sorry, sounded a little salesy now thinking about that, but that's not what my intent was. My point was just using one thing is great, but when you can use multiple things together, just like with multiple people working together, we talked about the journeys of blood, sweat, and tears of everybody in this room. Multiple people working together, it just makes the overall experience that much better and that much more worthwhile. So one of my favorite parts about this room is the room itself. People really don't give the room as much credit as it deserves. To me, a room is at least 50% of your overall experience. And what we've done in this room has allowed us to really control what is going on, both video and audio. But not only can we control it, we can also change it. So if in the future I decide that I need to change something, speakers, video, HDMI cabling, HVAC, every single one of these panels can come down. I'll show you in just a second. But the room itself is done by Officina Acustica, designed and built in Italy by Maurizio and Peter, and they designed, put together this room. I was able to see a render of it. They took my inspirations, took the speakers, took the specs, took the dimensions of the room, and this is what we came up with. I wanted something that was aesthetically pleasing, but not distracting. Almost a black hole, but you'd walk in and go, oh, this is nice to look at. It's not just a huge velvet room. But at the same time, I wanted something that was usable and changeable. So this room, the OA Officina Acustica rooms, represent what I view as the pinnacle of acoustic treatments. There may be better, but this gives you the benefit of being able to be usable while changeable. So every single one of these panels, so from the tops to the sides, every single one of these is different levels of diffusion and absorption. And if you come up and touch them, there you can feel that every panel is different. And on top of that, every panel sits X distance off the wall, between 12 and 16 inches. So this room is a room within a room. You're going from timber framing with R13 in between it, to Risset clips, to 7/8 inch hat channel, to 3/4 inch OSB, green glue, another layer of 3/4 inch OSB, and then that's all painted with matte black paint on primer. And then you have an extruded aluminum substrate that sits behind this, and then all of these panels mount to it. So every single one of these panels comes off. Dumb as it sounds and simple as it sounds, it's all using 3M high grade. It's not Velcro is the wrong word, but I'm going to say Velcro because you guys all get what I'm talking about. Velcro is like Jacuzzi. Jacuzzi's the brand. Velcro is the brand. So it's not Velcro, but you guys get it. So every single one of these comes off and provides easy access to what's behind it. All the speakers sit behind it. So you've got what is this room? An 11-1-6 is what we've got in this room. There's 11 subwoofers. So if you look at it that way, it's 11-11-6. But let's take one of these off. We're going to look behind the 64 here. And back here is what we call the dead men. So there's hanging 6 foot tall, 16-inch wide pieces of 3/4-inch OSB that are suspended on chains. They have Dynamat stapled to both sides, then Eco Fiber or cotton material on both sides, and then R38 stapled to both sides. So they're back there. When you get back behind the sub, it's really weird. I'll say it's almost like an anechoic chamber. It's not that quiet, obviously, but it is stupid quiet when you get back there. So they come off really simply. This one's not adhered on because it comes off a decent amount, but you can see the timber framing right there. And then we'll take this one off. You can see the speaker hidden right there. And you've got a 12-inch Pro beryllium. So it's got a beryllium tweeter. And then you've got a 21-inch kick sub. And they both look infinitesimally small in comparison to the 64. I mean, this looks like heck, an 8-inch driver in comparison to this thing. But that's a 21, that's a 12, and you can see the dead men as they hang back there that are acoustic treatments. Because ideally, you want to absorb the bass waves, and though with Storm these can do cancellations through active room treatment, they're not able to keep up with the 8 subs that are up front, the 621s and the 233s. So we need the ability to absorb before the bass wave comes back. And there are 10 of these guys back there hanging on chains so they can move instead of just being faceted to a wall. But that is, in a nutshell, the Officina room. So that's the back, and we talked about the sidewall, so all of those can come down. And then up here you have your 6 top channels coming up, and each one of these has its own level of absorption and diffusion. These don't have any speakers behind them, but these are hanging from chains. So you have the room within a room effect where sound can come through it again, bounce off the substrate material, and then come back. So you're getting double duty on the absorption and diffusion, which is super nice. Same is going to be true for the front. So behind the screen, you've got all the subs, and filling in all of the voids around the subs and the black swans is stacked R38, funnily enough, inside of bed sheets. Because as long as you can breathe through it, it's probably a pretty good acoustically transmersible material. And bed sheets, which is what we're seeing back here, these are fitted sheets, I think is what these are. But they do great at just containing the fiberglass from the R38 and the R13. So lighting in this room is just Philips Hue, nothing extravagant. I like Philips Hue because it was easy to implement, it's easy to control, it's easy for the family to use. That's another big point of this room is you could have an awesome theater, but if it's not easy to use, to me it's not great, or it's not as great as it could be. So room itself represents 50%, if not more, of the overall experience. This has been a great experience with Officina and everything that they've delivered. I can't recommend them enough. It's been fantastic. Peter and Maurizio have been awesome to work with, and it was really cool to be able to see the room and move around it 3-dimensionally before we were even had a room in manufacturing and well before it was delivered. So really appreciate that, and I get to thank Atlanta Home Theater again for that one, and going into an OA room and just going, oh no, I should not be here. This was a mistake. Costing more money. But in the end, I don't regret it at all. I would do it all over again because, nicely enough, if we decide that we're going to move, this room can all come down. At least the interior of it can all come down, can come with us. So very nice that you're making more of an investment. It's not really an investment, but it's not as much of a sunk cost because if something were to happen, we want to change it, expand it, move, this room can come with us and expand as we need. So again, that's the room. Really love it. Would do it all again in a heartbeat. Moving from the back of the room to the front of the room, the thing that dominates the front of this room is a 165-inch diagonal Stewart Harmony G3 screen. Funny thing about this screen that a lot of people notice is it is floor to ceiling, wall to wall. And the reason for that is I'm lazy. And I decided to go this direction because I didn't want to design or build a front wall. So this front wall is outside of the sides, left and right, is it's 4 2x4s, 5 2x4s, because you got the bottom, and a 2x10 coming across the top. Very simple construction. And my thought process with this is very simple. It's acoustically transparent. Some Vanna White here. Acoustically transparent. And if I like it this big, I have to do nothing else. If I don't like it this big, I can simply go back to masking off part of it that I don't like using manual masking panels. So I was a network engineer. I've got an engineering background, and they say that engineers, their best creations are usually born out of laziness. And this, ladies and gentlemen, was born purely out of laziness. And it was born because I didn't want to design a front wall. So before this, we had a Seymour Screen Excellence Neo. There is nothing bad about that screen. I just rotate between them. Right now, it's the Stewart Harmony G3. Again, the material on this is a Harmony G3. It is a 0.7 gain weave. It doesn't necessarily need to be a weave because of how far back the speakers are from the screen. Weaves typically do better than perforated materials with speakers that are close to them because the waveforms don't need as long to stabilize themselves before they run into the screen itself and can potentially create distortion. So that's not why we did it. I did it because I love acoustics. I love, acoustics is the wrong word. I love audio. And the saying, or the people say that woven materials do better with audio than perforated materials. They attenuate the sound less. Because of the projector that's in here, I was able to get away with a lower gain screen, right? In a lot of situations, a 0.7 gain screen can be very difficult because you're having to put more light on it and you're reflecting back less. Ideally, you'd be at a neutral, 1 gain, or even positive, though those do come with their own levels of compromise, right? You may have deteriorating viewing angles, you may have some sparkle depending on the gain, you may have some coloration or uniformity problems. But with this screen, with a 0.7, uniformity is nearly perfect, and I know that the sound that's coming through is as little attenuated as possible. So behind this, you have the 3 black swans. We'll put an image up. There's like an X-ray image that I can showcase where it'll show the black swans. You've got 6 21s, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 2 33s. And then you've got the R33 and bats sitting back there filling in all the gaps. There's 7 feet behind the screen. I needed that because the electrical room for the house is over there, and it is inaccessible unless you walk behind the screen. So you can get back there. We'll probably show a picture of this, or we can go back there. Jordan, we can go back there later if you want. Go underneath the stairs and you can actually stand back there, which is quite cool. You can be back there when things are on and manipulate things and do things. And again, it's making future me not hate past me. So it's great to be able to have access back there and making everything easier. I don't regret this at all. It actually turned out to be hugely immersive. I'm right on the fringes of what I would view as an acceptable viewing angle. It is amazing to see something on screen and it being the entire front of the theater. Wall to wall, floor to ceiling. I think there's nothing better, and I won't have it another way. If I do another theater, this is exactly how I'll do it. So no complaints, no regrets, nothing there. Screen's been awesome. No issues. I'm sure you guys can hear the whir of the fans. We're back by the racks now. First thing from the top is the Storm ISP Elite Mark III, 32 channels, all analog. Then you've got 2 PA8s followed by a single PA16 that's powering all of the speakers. The front speakers in there, the Black Swans, are active, so they're taking 2 channels apiece and then doing active crossovers in the processor. And then below that, we've got the Magnetar, which really at this point it's effectively a Spears and Munson player. I don't really use discs. Kaleidoscape handles all of the playback. So it just really does Spears and Munson and anything else that comes along. It is great for doing any off flash drive content, so you can play virtually anything, but it doesn't do a whole lot. Below that is the madVR Extreme Mark II, which is opposite the Storm as the brains of the operation for the video side, I look at it as giving you full granular control over your video experience. We talk all the time about audio and creating audio how we want it. Why not do the same for video? And madVR really does a great job of doing that, and that's why it's here. Plus, it's the madVR Experience Center, so it'd be a little funny if it wasn't here, but it does a fantastic job. And the calibration for the Christie was done through that using a 1D and 3D LUT. Below that is a AV Pro Edge MX88. It's an 18 gigabit per second HDMI switch, 8 in, 8 out, and it is full. So all of the sources are filing into it, and then it backfeeds and sends out all of the information to the Storm and then out to the projector, so I can actually run unprocessed content if I want to bypass the madVR to the Christie directly. Below that is a AV Pro Edge 4x1 video matrix and the Kaleidoscape down below, and then some random sources. You've got a Roku, an Apple TV, an NVIDIA Shield. There was an Revolution in here. I ran out of room, so it is not present. But that is the rack. And I mentioned this about the madVR, about it having full granular control over the video experience. And the Storm does a lot of that too for audio, really all of that too for the audio. You've got full PEQ that we did for calibration before we did DIRAC, and then we ran DIRAC, had DIRAC do art, active room treatment, and then from there did another PEQ after that. So there's no need for external DSPs. Everything is done in the Storm. It's got a great user interface. The GUI is awesome, and it does a fantastic job. So just like the madVR, if you guys are after the pinnacle, the best of the best, the Storm is a great place to stop for that, because really there's nothing better than it. It does a fantastic job giving you all the control you need to create an experience, an audio experience of what you want. And madVR on the flip side of that does it for the video. So those are that's the rack in and of itself. There's some other stuff that we won't go into that just kind of makes the theater function. There's 5,000 feet, roughly a mile of 12.4 speaker cable. There are 19 electrical circuits. 12 of those are 20 amps. Then you've got 6 of those being 15 amp and then 130 amp in the room itself for the projector. So all the power, every amp gets its own 20 amp circuit, making sure that everything's not running out of headroom. So we're delivering as much as possible. The theater in and of itself runs on its own 100 amp sub panel. And I heard a while ago that you just want to make sure that your amps have the power they need. Underfeeding them can actually lead to problems, distortion, and potentially damage. So do I need it? Probably not, but that's the route we take. I've never blown a breaker, even when we've hit 140 plus in that room of undistorted sound. So it seems to be working out. But that is the rack, and it's doing a great job so far.
All right, so now let's talk a little bit about the room, why you made some of the decisions that you made. I don't think we've talked about it first, but why don't you tell me what is the speaker configuration, and then how does that play into how you decided to design the room? It's a smaller room, yes. And as you can see, this 64 is about, what, 3-4 feet from the seating position. So let's talk a little bit about how you decided to design that, and because I'm sure some people might be wondering, why did you decide to have all these speakers so close?
Why did I go the direction that I did? So the room itself is 28 feet long, 16 feet wide, and 8 feet tall. You don't see that. When you're in the room, it's 14 by 14, right? That is the physical space that you see, 14 by 14 by 8. So a ton of this space is eaten up by acoustics. And the room originally had a bar back in the back. It didn't have an AT screen. The electrostatic speakers took up a ton of space. There were at one point 4,000 ULFs in this room, which I have a disease. Something is wrong with me. So my philosophy with this is go big or go home. It's been that way with everything that I do. If I'm going to do something, there is no half-assing it. It is, we're going to send it. Like, we're going to go all the way. I'm going to pass the finish line. And my finish line is now 4 miles out past where the original one was. I don't know why. I have no idea why I have this problem. My wife will say I have a problem. She always says, you have a problem. Yeah, I do. Something's wrong with me. I don't know what the catalyst or tipping point for that was, but So it's 28 feet long, 16 feet wide, 8 feet tall. We had to move walls. We had to tore this room down to studs. There's some great pictures of that I'll show you. And the Black Swans, when I heard them, and at the time the 50, now the 64, I knew I wanted those to be part of the experience. I had near fields before. I had tactile transducers. And I'd been in enough rooms in this very short time that I knew how far I wanted to go. And then I wanted to eclipse that and just keep going. So you had art was coming out and you had waveforming was coming out. They were brand new technologies. And I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. So art is a lot more flexible. It allows for a lot of different things with active room treatment. Every speaker is active at all given times and is able to cancel out anything else, and not anything else, up to a certain frequency range to help with modes and standing waves. So I knew I wanted an active array and a rear array, but even further than that, I didn't want to rely on that technology much with the Officina room. So there's a ton of analog treatment ahead and behind. So there's 7 feet behind this woofer and 7 feet behind the screen of acoustic treatments. Behind there, we can show a picture of this. I call them the dead men. They're 6 feet tall, 16 inches wide, with Dynamat stapled to both sides, then Echo Fiber, and then R38, and then they're covered in bed sheets, and they are on chains so they can hang. And you go back there, and it is oddly quiet. It's disturbingly quiet, working back behind the 50. I don't like being back there very long.
It's kind of like anechoic.
It's not quite to that point, but it's weird how quiet it is. Like, you leave this room, you go into the other room, you can tell the noise floor changes. You go from this room back there, and it is worse than going out of the room. It's way worse. So tons of analog treatments in this room. But the speaker configuration is 3 Black Swans up front for the LCRs. Then there are 8 Ascendo 12 Pro BEs, so the Beryllium Driver 12 Pros. And then on the top, there's another 6 of those. And the ones on the 6, because my ceiling height is so low, I do a lot of sitting and staring. So I visualize what I want to build. My wife thinks you don't have like an inner voice. You don't have words that come. No, I visualize everything. And it's not like a Rain Man style thing where I'm able to remember an entire city skyline with all of the window. I don't do it to that level. It's very broad brushstrokes, but I visualize everything. So I would sit on the floor and I would stare at a wall like something was wrong with me, maybe with some drool coming out of my mouth, like I'm stroking out. And I would stare and just try and visualize how I was going to do this. Because I couldn't figure out, I've got these huge speakers. The 12 Pro wedges they're like a foot thick. And if I put a foot on this, like down here, right? You're losing. This becomes a danger, right? Running into it. So I didn't want to do that. So we cut holes, 2 foot by 2 foot holes into the ceiling, and then mounted the speakers on projector mounts, and they come down and they're recessed into the ceiling. And the reason I did projector mounts, remember, I'm lazy. Future me doesn't want to hate past me. So the projector mounts allow me to be lazy in my mounting. So I can just get them into the hole centered, and then I can turn an angle however I want. If the position moves, if anything changes, we just change the angle. We don't have to take the speakers down because I'm lazy, and we can reconfigure things. So that's how those are configured. Then we've got 6 21s up front, 2 33s, 2 more 21s in the rear, and then the 64. It's all driven by about 135,000 watts of amplification. Goodness. It's on its own dedicated 100 amp service panel. There's 19 electrical circuits, 12 20 amps, 6 15 amps, and a 30 amp. I did that because every amp I wanted to have on its own dedicated circuit. It's never going to use full 20 amps, but again, overkill. I'm going to do it if I'm going to do it. I'm already using a service panel. It's not that much more difficult to run a dedicated wire over, and it's probably going to save me later, I thought. So if I wanted to change anything, it's not that much more difficult. Might as well do it now. And I wanted to do this because I have this feeling that always nags at me with anything is, what if this could be better? And this is the first time in really anything that I've done where I've sat down, any hobby that I have, and I've far too many. I sit down and I turn a piece of content on, and I don't think, how can this be better? I don't think, what could I change to change this? I don't like this. I sit down and it is total and complete immersion. I am in the content. It is not, I'm watching content, I'm in the content. The room fades away, which for anybody that hasn't been in that space or in that feeling, it's like being in the zone for sports. Yeah. There's no separation between you and the content. And it is an amazingly freeing feeling to be in that nirvanic state where I feel like I'm getting what the director, the cinematographer, the audio engineer, the content creators, the art, whoever wanted to put out. Like, this is as close as I'm going to get to being in it live. I still have this feeling where I'll be watching 2-channel. I use this room all the time for 2-channel.
Nice.
I'll be watching 2-channel and I have vocal reaction. There's nobody else in here. And I am having a verbal reaction to what's going on.
That's great.
Far more frequently than I would like to admit. Like, I'm a crazy person evidently sitting in here, but it's that visceral of a feeling with what's been here. And that's where I wanted to get. My whole thing getting up and while this theater was being built and while we were designing it, I always thought, I really hope it doesn't suck. And for anybody that watched the podcast, anybody that knows, I said that all the time. I hope it doesn't suck. And the first time I sat down, it was uncalibrated. There was no time aligned, nothing. And even then, it didn't suck. And now, it definitely doesn't suck. I mean, now, it is, I don't know, unless something changes in the future, right? A huge technology change or what have you. I have been in a lot of spaces. And I think that this eclipses all of them.
And I'll interject here because when we were sitting down watching the demos yesterday, you had your iPad and you were showing me the levels. And I mean, there was a couple times we hit 126, 130, and I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, that's really loud. But at no point, at any point of any of the demos, did my ears ever feel any type of fatigue at all. No ringing, nothing. And after we finished the demos, I'm like, I don't like, usually, you know, you go to some of these home theater tours and it sounds good, but they crank it because they want you, and then you're kind of like, man, that's a little too loud.
Well, I told you at the beginning that what we're going to watch and how we're going to experience it is how I watch and there's no demo. I mean, there is a demo mode, right? But we didn't do it. That was just reference. Like, that is not, I have a reference demo and I have a max and I have these other ones when we want to have fun. Not that that wasn't fun, but I want to be insane. And how you experience it is, I don't typically watch all the way at reference, but I may watch -3, -5, somewhere in there. So it's still really loud.
Yeah.
But that's how I watch. That's what you got. The motion AI being on, the levels, the bait, that is just a culmination of what it was.
Impressive.
And I think a lot of times people mistake distortion for loudness. So we think that because our ears hurt, it's too loud, which it is too loud for the equipment, but what we're actually hearing and hurting is the distortion. So our ears, it's like nails on a chalkboard. We don't like the distortion. But if you can get something, if you're in an air show and you're watching the Blue Angels, the Thunderbirds or something, they fly over, it is absurdly loud, but your ears don't hurt, right? You get that huge thump in your chest and it's ridiculously loud. You're at a concert, there's times they'll hit 130 dB, probably more, depending on who's playing. Ears don't hurt. It's clean audio. They may ring several days from now as they decompress and the cochlea and the ears, the hairs and stuff start to uncompress, but you don't have that feeling. Why do we do that to ourselves in home theater? So one of the big things that I was trying to do in here is how absurd can I take this? Because I know I like listening to things at absurd volumes. How far can I take this while still getting that fidelic feeling, that amazing fidelity, unbelievable clarity without causing undue pain? So one of the things we do in this room a lot is I get people that come in, spouses, that'll say my partner's room is too loud. And I'll say, okay, I don't think it's too loud. I think there's distortion, either being created by the room, the equipment, the speakers, or both. And I say, we're going to start here. And I'm just going to keep turning it up. I'm not going to tell you I'm turning it up. I'm just going to keep turning it up. If it ever gets too loud, I want you to tell me. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I want you to tell me. I have yet to have a person say it's too loud. In every single one of those instances, we're above reference.
Interesting.
Every single time. You turn on, and they look at me like, that was absolutely amazing. We couldn't have been that loud. And I show them the volume. And we have a calibrated measurement mic in here. I don't think you can see it. It's right above the lens. And that's actually calibrated to the SPL. It's not just a measurement file. I have a calibrator for the mics so we can level match them. And it is calibrated for this room. So we can see actively RTA, spectro, and SPL readings of what's going on in the room. And like you said, the loudest we hit during our demos was 130, which is absurdly loud. So reference, for anybody, what we call reference, THX reference, there is actually no reference, but what people refer to as reference is 85 average, 105 peak for speakers, and then it's 95 average and 115 peak for subs, and we're at 130. So we've got a base curve. We're technically a little bit above reference. I mean, there is a house curve where we're probably 10 plus on the bass. That's just how what I find most people like. Not everybody, but what people I surround myself, what I like. Because in some cases, I call this the narcissist theater, because I built this with excuses for myself, right? I wanted something super cool. I'm a dealer, I'm a custom integrator, but I wanted something cool. I wanted to be able to experience it. And the room, the house curve, it's designed with science and philosophy and all of this stuff, but how it is how I like to watch.
That's important.
And that's important because we all do this stuff. We all experience this stuff. And I don't know, used excuses to be able to build it. And that's where we got. So the whole room is a culmination of craziness. The racks themselves, you've got the Storm, you've got two PA8s, the PA16, so it's a Storm ISP Elite Mark III 32 channel. Then you've got the madVR. Then you've got all the video sources and all the amps. But the madVR, and this is kind of why it's called the madVR Experience Center, because Rick and I had a conversation about what I was doing. And this room embodies the idea of what madVR is and the idea of what Storm is, frankly. And that is, one, getting us to the best that things can be. And two, putting you in control to get to your nirvana, to get to that space where it's no longer a room. It is a transport mechanism to get you to the experience. Because we all talk about all of these specs. We all talk about the equipment. But what we're actually chasing is an experience. And if you can deliver the experience, we all go do all of these things. We go to sports games, we go to concerts. They're experiences. This is an experience. And the idea behind the room is getting to a level of experience where it's no longer a room. It is you and the content. And that is the embodiment of Storm. It's the embodiment of madVR, of getting you to that point by pulling out all of the stops. My philosophy was, everything has a compromise. Right. And sometimes that compromise is money. And my wife hated this compromise. But my philosophy was, if I could spend more and gain percentage points in performance, I likely did. Right? Because I didn't want to be in a point of, what would it be like if I did that? I didn't want to be thinking about sitting in that seat, regretting, I don't know what that would be like. And this happens all the time psychologically on Audio Science Review, on all different kinds of reviews of people talking about, I don't need this DAC because my ears can't hear it. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong to go either way, but psychologically we have these feelings of, I may not be able to hear it, I think, because we don't know, because we're dumber than we think we are. But what would it have been like? Would it have been different? And when you're thinking about that, it breaks the immersion. And that's a problem. And I didn't want to be in that spot. And madVR and Storm allow you to do that, but they also put you in firm, granular control of your own experience. So instead of things being, somebody else tells me that this is how it needs to be, I am now in control of the audio and video and creating a video audio experience that is for me. Because the room, remember, is an excuse for me to create something. And those two devices specifically give me the ability to curate an experience that is for me. So this room is just, I guess, for lack of a better term, an extension of me. I am out of control, and I think I have a disease of some sort. And this room is just a physical embodiment of how my mind operates, of send it.
Okay. So you said this room is out of control. You've got all these speakers in here, all this power. Let's talk a little bit about how Storm is processing all of this out of control equipment. First of all, what was calibrating this room like with Storm?
Oh man.
And direct art.
We had Matt Trinkline and Adam Peltz out here at the same time, and we spent a week in this room. A week in this room. It's not that it needed a week's time. It's a showroom as well. So there's a bunch of different calibrations. So don't think that the room sucked to the point of it needed a week to get help. It needed its own counseling sessions and stuff. No, that wasn't the thing. It was a learning process, because when we started, infrasonics were a thing, but they haven't been to the point where we are now, where as many people are talking about them. And it was trying to figure out how to bring in infrasonics with Dirac. And the first several times we did calibrations, it did not work. Dirac did not like the infrasonics being present. So then we figured out, okay, we need to take the infrasonic subs, the 33s and the 64, and move them to zone 2. So Dirac doesn't even know that the infrasonics exist. It's only dealing with kick subs. And then we manually blended back in the infrasonics. But that took several rounds of failure. Remember, kids, failure's okay. It's all about, are you learning from that failure, right? Did you take that lesson and apply it going forward so you don't make that same mistake?
Okay.
So there were many mistakes. There were times where, and any technical thing like Dirac can fall on its face. Like, this room's really complicated. There's a lot of stuff going on. Video switching, HDMI nightmare, because there's so many devices in a signal chain. So we ran into issues with that. We ended up getting them resolved. That took time. There was some phasing problems that we had to get. There was a couple subs that were backwards that we had to fix. So just takes time, and it took a week. And by the end, though, when we were demoing clips, and by demo I mean we're using a reference, because you're doing a manual EQ, you're applying Dirac, then you're doing another manual EQ. So you're sandwiching Dirac with 2 manual EQ sessions, because the Storm is tons of options for PEQ. So you want to get it so that Dirac has to do less. And then sometimes you don't like what Dirac did, so then you tweak afterwards. That's why the after one takes place. So we're doing all of this, and we would use certain clips as references to look at, does that sound right? Do we need more here, less there? And we would turn these on after a certain point, and before we knew it, we were an hour into the movie. We'd just get sucked in. So that was another reason why it took forever. Totally worth it. I don't think most people need a week of calibration time. If you're doing an on-site calibration with one of those guys, it's probably 1 or 2 days to get fully dialed in. But that's what it took. So Storm, like what I talked about in allowing you the granular control and getting you to the experience, all of its features, and they're continually adding more, it allows you to get to that state. And I bought my first Storm before I was a dealer, right? So I would do it again without question. Full price, no question, I would do it because of the experience it offers, the company itself, the product itself, and now that I know what I know, the control it gives me to do what I want. So people compare it in the conversation, oh, what Storm versus, there's no sound difference. Well, there's not when you aren't applying any PEQ, when you're not doing Dirac, because the Dirac, if you're comparing it to something like another manufacturer, I won't name names, Storm has way more taps, so it's able to apply way more filters than any of the other products. Yeah. And a lot of people don't know this, but Dirac is not implemented by Dirac. They give you a script or the toolbox and say, hey, here's your tools, you go implement it. So Dirac, even across different platforms from different manufacturers, is not implemented the same way. And that itself can cause variation, because Dirac works very closely with Storm for research and development, all kinds of different stuff. They've just got a great relationship. So Storm is one of those that just provides an end game experience, and it's also a chassis that is able to grow with you if you choose to. If you bought a Storm 16, you could grow, and I know this kind of sounds kind of salesy, but if you bought a Storm 16, you could, if you wanted to add more channels, upgrade it to 24, upgrade it to 32. If you wanted to change it from analog to digital, you could change it. If you wanted to run both at the same time, you could run a 32 channel analog and a 32 channel digital system simultaneously in the same house. You could upgrade your decoder, your main board, your HDMI. It's all upgradable. So you're buying into the ecosystem, and then it grows with you. The first dive is the expensive one with a lot of these products, because you're paying for their R&D. You got to pay for people's salaries, right? People always, this comes up with madVR all the time of, well, I could build this at home. They don't know what's in it, but you forget that there's people behind these products. There's a ton of time. There's a ton of development. There's a ton of licensing. There's a ton of stuff that people don't consider, even the shipping times and everything. There's always people that have to be taken care of along the way, and everybody's got to make a living. So especially with small products that can come into things being maybe a little more expensive, but it's boutique and it's amazing. And I would buy it again. Like, I bought it before I was a dealer, and I would do it again if I wasn't a dealer. The experience has been that good.
Yeah, this is a great space. I mean, I remember watching the live streams when you first started building it. Actually, when you were tearing down your previous theater, I remember seeing all that stuff, and I was like, man, I had it in my mind, this is going to be epic. And it didn't disappoint, man. Coming out here and experiencing the infrasonics, experiencing the video, and I think one thing we didn't talk about here, we could spend a few minutes talking about, is that Christie projector that you have up there. But Christie, the madVR, the Ascendo, all the subs, the infrasonics, the acoustic, the immersion. I mean, you went all out, like you said, and it shows. This is cream of the crop right here. So
thanks.
And very, very impressive. I guess to close out, is there anything that you would say to someone who sees this? And again, we're sharing this experience with you. This isn't to say like your system is nothing, because it's not. This is something that most home theater enthusiasts will probably never achieve, but it is possible. So what would you say to somebody that's viewing this, that's maybe starting on their home theater journey and thinks, I'll never be able to get to that, or maybe even something that's half of this? You can still get an incredible experience. You just have to do your research, talk to people like you, and make sure that you know the best way to build a room for you, like you said.
So a couple things. One is, you can get an amazing experience for not a lot of money. When you start chasing the rabbit, and I talk about this a lot on the podcast, I talk it a lot when I'm talking to customers. When you start chasing the rabbit down the rabbit hole, things get exponentially expensive and out of control very, very fast, for far exceedingly diminishing returns, right? This happens with anything. Take cars, for example. When you're trying to chase that last bit of horsepower, of speed, of torque, when you're trying to get to the bleeding edge, that's where things get really, really expensive, because the technology is right on the precipice. You're blazing a trail with the technology you're getting. And you're also, the other part you have to consider is, you're potentially getting technologies that aren't as stable as something that's been around for a long time. And that's something that a lot of people don't think about. So just know that you can have a tremendous experience for nowhere near what I'm in the hole for. You don't need to spend tons of money in order to have a great experience. I just have a disease. And another thing is, do not be afraid to make mistakes, as long as you're going to learn from them.
Yeah.
Mistakes and failures are how we learn, right? We learn through doing, not doing it right, and then getting up and doing it again. Most of the time, if you do it right the first time, that's not a great learning moment, because you're doing it, but you don't, in most cases, understand fully how it's working or what's going on. Usually through failure, we have a better understanding of, at a foundational level, of how things are operating or behaving or doing. So the failures and the thinking and the paths that we take, though they may not always be the right one, are very, very important. And I wouldn't trade that at all. I wouldn't trade my journey at all. It's what allowed me to get to where I'm at. And the last part is, do not be afraid to blaze your own trail. Don't be afraid to light something on fire, right? Nobody else has done it. Who cares? Go and figure it out. And there's a lot of stuff in this room that we've done that nobody else has done even up until this point. So, or that kind of thought I was crazy. Like the Christie is literally sitting on this projector. It's on a decoupling mount, but the mounts are sitting on it's sitting on the subwoofer. I'm sorry. The mounts are sitting on the subwoofer, and it's just a rubber dome, and then the projector sits on it. People thought I was crazy, but if you build this thing tough enough, and it's 20 sheets of Baltic birch,
Jeez.
it doesn't really move. It's concrete anchored in the floor, and if we really get hammering, you can see it kind of vibrate, but you're vibrating, so how the hell do you know? People thought I was crazy, but it worked. And I had an idea that it would work. And I had the mindset of, if it doesn't work, we'll figure it out.
Right.
But this is where I'm going to start. If you're afraid to fail, it's really hard to get moving forward. And so I looked at this of, like when the subwoofer didn't fit down the stairs, it's part of the journey. How can I overcome this? And that problem was because I was trying to put a 64-inch subwoofer into a basement that nobody, I don't know. I don't think many people had done that. I don't know that a 64 had ever gone down a flight of stairs like it was going. Maybe it did. Not. I don't know. But I was okay if things happen, and I laugh about it. I laughed about it then because it's part of the story of this room. So it's being okay to fail, understanding that you don't have to chase the rabbit all the way unless you have a problem like myself, and being okay blazing that trail, right? Those are things that allowed this room to come to fruition, and it's allowed and given me the joy of going on this journey. So this room wouldn't exist without those three things, and I wouldn't change it, any of it.
Nice. And finally, if people want to come and experience this, to get an idea, how do they reach out to you? How can they?
If they want to come experience this, so us in Kansas City, not just myself, we have, maybe it's in the water. I don't know. There's something wrong where Jonathan and I mainly, we open our doors to people. So I host people, I host customers, I host people in the industry. I had a gentleman come in from Texas last week, not you, but I had another gentleman come in from India. I've had people come in from all over the country, usually a couple times a month, and I host them. I'm a dealer. I'm a custom integrator, and it's not always customers. Sometimes it's people just trying to get an idea of the journey they want to be on, to figure out, what do I like? What do I dislike? Where am I trying to go with all of this? Because if you haven't been in these spaces and you haven't experienced some of this stuff, how do you know? How do you know if this is something you like? How do you know if it's something you appreciate? How do you know if it's something you strongly dislike and hate? Sometimes that happens. Sometimes people don't like infrasonics. Sometimes people don't like the look of the room, the aspect ratio of the screen, the floor to ceiling, whatever. Experiencing it is part of then knowing and getting the knowledge to be able to take that knowledge, that experience and knowledge, and put that into your journey and wherever you're going forward. So I'm not pushy. The best way to get people to get a hold of me is AVS. You can email me. Maybe you can put that in the description. I'll put that in the description. But it's not about, Jordan doesn't bring that up because I'm trying to get sales. I'm not. It's more of, I want the industry to be better than it was before I was here. That's it. Whether you buy something, I don't care. I just want you, if you have another deal, I'll sell things for other people. It doesn't bother me. It's about making sure that you're taken care of, you're making the right decision, and you're getting what is right for you. Your journey is for you, not what somebody else is telling you it needs to be, or a pathway that they deem is most profitable for them. That's not what this is about. So AVS probably, my email, whatever's easiest for you.
All right, I'll make sure I put all that stuff in the description. Ryan, man, thanks again for this experience and letting me share this with the world. If you guys enjoy this video, which I'm sure most of you home theater enthusiasts do, you guys have been asking for this video, make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.